What's up, hybrids? Welcome back to another episode of the Phantom Hybrid Podcast. This is Hanako, and I am here with Anthony, Lori, and Mike. And we are discussing season 2, episode 4 of Marvel's What If series. The title of this episode is What If Iron Man Crashed into the Grandmaster?
Or what if you combine Mad Max, Fast and Furious, Ben-Hur, and every other NASCAR movie that you've ever thought of watching?
And Talladega Nights.
And Talladega Nights.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
All that was missing was a sweet baby Jesus.
Seriously.
I'm just going to go off of the top and say that this episode was definitely my least favorite episode. I did not care for this episode at all. It was a trial to get through. I just didn't like it. And I love Ragnarok, which you would think that given that, I would love this episode. Just, it was a no for me.
But it was also the episode formerly known as What If Gamora Had Killed Thanos?
Yeah. But she eventually did.
Okay, so this is the thing that made it my least favorite, because when I watched it the first time, I didn't really have any thoughts about it one way or the other. But then when I watched it again tonight, I was like, in a way, this episode really kind of sort of doesn't make sense. And I say that because, one, this is the episode that was supposed to air, I believe, last season. And I forgot what the situation was, but it was one of the ones that was pulled out. They put it with season 2. Okay, fine. At the beginning of this episode, they introduce it as, what is it that they say? This is Gamora's story, or Gamora's story in this universe starts as part of someone else's, which, of course, it is Tony Stark's story mainly. But it's like, even if we were supposed to get the introduction to Gamora and her character, how she ended up being part of that group for season 1, I feel like this episode really didn't cover that, especially if the title was What If Gamora Had Killed Thanos, because we don't see that happening or, hinting that it's going to happen until the very last 10 seconds of the episode.
It kind of seemed like an afterthought when they finally addressed it. But maybe that's why they didn't show it last year, because they didn't like how, maybe because the title would have been way misleading if they still called it that. And this is what they showed, because they're like, this has nothing to do with Gamora or Thanos until the last 2 minutes of the episode. And it's like, why would you name it that? Maybe that's why they decided to put it off and rename it and try to rearrange it, because I think it kind of seems like they did the introduction to the episode fresh, just to kind of set the stage and to kind of retcon everything and draw and try to put it together.
Right.
And then put that part at the end where she hit him with the melty stick and okay, boom, he's dead. But that really doesn't. I agree with you. That was really uneven. It didn't seem like it flowed right into what if the season finale of last year, where they were melting melting the Infinity Gauntlet. I'm like, and she did not even need to use the Infinity Stone Crusher that she used in the finale last year. We didn't see that at all. So it's like this whole episode seemed kind of pasted together off the cutting room floor. I mean, there were still good parts of it, but yeah, this is probably in my bottom 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, even with the way they had Gamora come into this episode and just kind of, her pursuit of Tony. So just to give everyone background, the way that this episode starts, it takes place during Avengers, when Tony as Iron Man goes and kind of, destroys the Chitauri fleet over New York. And what happens is, instead of him falling back through the portal that was open, the portal closes and he ends up bouncing around the universe until he eventually ends up in Sakaar. Now, somehow, Gamora finds him on Sakaar. Tony is there with the Grandmaster. The Grandmaster is grandmastering the way that he does, and they're doing a birthday celebration for him and a Grand Prix style race. And The Grand Prix style race is very Mad Max, is very much okay, we're racing, but there's also destruction and we're killing, our opponents and that sort of thing. And then Gamora just kind of drops in and starts shooting at Tony, and Tony has no clue who the fuck she is, why she's trying to kill him. He's just like confused. All he wants to do is go back home.
Yeah, that was hella random. Just her appearing out of nowhere in the middle of a Ben-Hur chariot race. I'm like, you didn't even have any reason to be there.
No. And then it's like, even when he's asking her, she was like, what does he say? Who are you? I'm your death. He was like, okay, why? Because you destroyed Thanos's plan, blah, blah, blah. He was like, who the hell is Thanos? Like, he's so clueless, and she's like so gung-ho, which of course she's a villain. Villains don't necessarily feel like they need to explain themselves to you. They think that if they're coming after you, you know what you did wrong. Okay. But I don't know, just the flow of the episode, if it was supposed to be introducing her introduction into the What If universe and this story, I just don't really feel like it did a good job. I mean, even at the part where they decide they have to try to beat the Grandmaster so that Tony can go home and everything can go back to whatever way it's supposed to go, when he's sitting there trying to convince her that she doesn't have to keep on this path that Thanos has, that she could be her own person, it felt very... it didn't feel natural. The flow of the conversation just felt weird. And I know it's animation. I know that this is like a alternate universe, but I don't know. It was one of those things where, like, Tony Stark, his character is always very, very funny in a deadpan way. He always has something smart to say. And, he just has that kind of vibe. But I feel like in this particular episode, he and the Grandmaster especially, I felt like their characters were being forced. It was too much, like they were trying too hard to be punny. They were trying too hard to be funny. And it just didn't flow very well for me, which is crazy because I love Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster. Like, he's funny in that role, but it's just kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's also because of the animation. It didn't fit with the character for me this time.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a waste of Jeff Goldblum and Mick Wingert. Shout out to Mick Wingert for actually absolutely crushing the sound of Tony Stark. I think he's doing a really good job of voicing him. So, but yeah, I agree. It seemed a lot of it seemed really forced. Seemed like this whole episode seems like they just wanted to shoehorn it in because everybody kept asking about, oh my God, Gamora melted the Infinity Gauntlet. How did it happen? How did it happen? Y'all got to show that episode. We're missing that episode. And they were like, fine. Yeah, so take a little of this, give me a little of this. All right, spice that shit together. All right, boom, there you go.
Right. And I can also... Oh, I'm sorry, Anthony. I was going to say, and I can also say, just having seen the rest of the season, I don't know that we ever get that definitive answer about her in the Infinity Gauntlet.
I just know that the production on this episode was kind of messed up because of COVID. So it maybe was one of those things where it stopped, like they stopped mid-production, and then they never really finished it, which is why I never aired. And then they just finished it, in their spare time. It just doesn't feel like it looks nice. It looks pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about it. Like, first of all, I don't really care for... I know everyone loves Jeff Goldblum as...
Hey. Nope. Don't even get started, sir. No,
he's okay.
Absolutely not.
But I had
no slander.
I had enough of him. I didn't. I had enough of him in Ragnarok. I would have been fine never seeing him again.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just too much for me.
It just felt very out of place.
Yeah.
I feel like...
Well, I think that's his fault. I think that's more of this. That's more of this episode being uneven. I think that just has to do with how I mean, I agree with Anthony that this is probably a continuation. They probably filmed this as a continuation, where it's where people weren't in the same mind state when they recorded it the first time. Then they record it again, and everything is off. Where they're just like trying to get into character again, and they can't quite do it. They do it fine, but it's not really cohesive because the whole
And
thing is just a
it doesn't
mess.
fit in the overall structure of this season.
It
just-
Yeah,
doesn't.
because we didn't see anything else about it. It's like it didn't have really. They could have done without it. Period.
And
Like
not
it
only
didn't fit
that,
with anything.
it doesn't really fit much with last season either, as far as Gamora's
Yeah.
character.
It does a little bit.
A little bit, but
Very
not, I mean,
little.
not until the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this episode, I feel like, you know, if what happens if Iron Man crash into the Grandmaster? So it's like once Iron Man gets to Sakaar and the Grandmaster, of course, you know, the Grandmaster, he likes trying to keep things that he has no business trying to keep. And this is the same thing with Tony, you know, with Tony Stark. He wants to keep the, what does he call him? Metal Mojo Man
Yes.
from
Metal Mojo
Earth.
Man.
He wants to keep him, you know, he likes the suit and all this other stuff, and kind of similar to what he did with Loki in Ragnarok. You know, he had Loki be his guest in the box while they were doing the gladiatorial games. This follows a similar premise, but of course this event takes place before the events of Ragnarok. But Tony is there. He's looking at the way that things are going. You know, things on Sakaar right now are not great. There's apparently a food shortage, so the citizens are hungry. There's blood in the river. I don't know. There's a lot of things going on this planet. And the Grandmaster, in his ways, he's focused on himself and celebrating his birthday and wanting to do these things instead of addressing the needs of what is going on his planet.
I like when Thor asks Korg, "Is this Grandmaster guy as bad as I think he is?"
You mean Iron Man? You said
I mean
Thor.
Iron Man. I'm sorry, Iron Man. Ask him, "Is he as bad as I think he is?" He's like,
He's like, he wants to use me as a paperweight.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how that feels to have to sit on paper? My arch
mortal
nemesis?
enemy. That was awesome. That was perfect.
Yeah.
They're really riding this Korg rock paper scissors thing. Like that's the
And I don't mind.
second time. I don't mind either. I think it's great. I think it's awesome.
I think for me, Korg and Valkyrie were the best parts of this episode, because we do have Valkyrie. She's there. She's part of this chariot race. And she's doing the same thing we saw her do in Ragnarok. You know, she's just kind of there. She's doing the race. When she gets out, she's like, okay, I'm just going to sit and be a spectator. But because of her skills in that race, Tony kind of recruits her to help him. I don't want to say overthrow the Grandmaster, but basically put the Grandmaster in his place. So again, we're going back to my previous statement about liking various pair-ups that didn't happen in the actual MCU and seeing them here. I like Tony and Valkyrie together. They worked well in this. And Korg, I just like Korg with anybody, because he literally is one of those people that can adapt to anyone. So I like seeing that dynamic. I like seeing them do the team up, the race that they did, and how they eventually kind of defeated the Grandmaster. But it was just, I don't know. I was expecting something else with the way that the introduction came about Gamora, and, you know, her story came in the midst of someone else's. And it's like, we didn't really get her story. We got that she was pissed off. We got that she was there for revenge. And then Tony Stark says, what, 2-3 sentences to her, and then all of a sudden she changes her tune. That does not, to me, fit with the murderess assassin that we have, you know, come to know Gamora to be prior to her betrayal of Thanos.
This actually is
didn't fit.
It's kind of an interesting parallel where in episode 2, his father talked Bucky down from shooting Peter in the second episode, and he talked Gamora into helping him, and not killing him.
But
So
it's kind of different because I feel like with the whole thing with Howard Stark and Bucky Barnes or the Winter Soldier as he was in that episode, the fact that he mentioned Steve Rogers and you see the Winter Soldier he has a visual reaction to Steve's name being brought up, that kind of tells you that there's a little bit of Bucky still there. It's not like he was in the Winter Soldier film where up until he saw Steve, he had no recollection of that life whatsoever. He was really a killing machine that was completely brainwashed, had no type of emotions or feelings for himself. I mean, we saw that even with his flashbacks when we saw him killing this person and killing that person. He had no emotion on his face as the Winter Soldier. In this episode, or in the last episode, when we see him, you do see a little bit of that emotional reaction. And then also, because of that, him and Howard Stark also had a past. Him and Peggy had a past. So I feel like that Howard reaching out to him in that way, I don't feel like that was as far-fetched. In this episode, Tony he doesn't even know who Thanos is. You know what I'm saying? He has no clue who Thanos is. He has no clue who Gamora is. As far as he knows, the Chitauri were there because of Loki. He doesn't even know about that connection between all of this. So it just seemed more far-fetched to me. Like it just did not fit.
Yeah, I see that.
Like they could have done this episode without the Gamora part and it would have made sense. I just kind of feel like if you're going to give us the backstory that was missing from last season about how Gamora killed Thanos and ended up with that group of Avengers or, the world's guardians or whatever it is you want to call them at that time, I just don't feel like they did it with this episode.
Here's an experiment. Do we know where that episode was supposed to fall in season one? Because it would be curious to watch season one with where that episode is supposed to be. And I wonder if that would make a difference.
I feel like it was supposed to be right before What If Ultron won. I think it was supposed to be towards the end of the season.
Yeah. I don't know, and anything that we might have had, any information of that we might have had from last season, I don't even know if we could find it. I would probably have to go back through one of our old posts from last season before it came out, when they actually released the episode titles and everything. We probably have to find it there, but I don't know.
I think it might make a difference.
You think?
Yeah, I think it might make a difference. Like, kind of ignore the introduction, because the introduction was redone for this season.
Yeah.
And then watch it in sequence. Now, I wonder if I think it might make a difference.
And I think that makes sense, but I think it's also weird because I'm thinking about the conversation we had with the last episode and what Lori and Mike were saying about how the What If comics were like. The What If comics were basically one shots. Those stories never went into another. We know that's different for this medium, for the show, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. And maybe it's because they had already put so much money into this episode, and that's why they didn't reshoot it. That's why they didn't rewrite certain things. I mean, that I can understand. But I feel like if they had focused more on what happened at the end with Tony and Gamora, Gamora taking Tony to Thanos, because she's like, oh, I still have to take you into him. And then all of a sudden, she's betraying Thanos and she's getting ready to kill him. I think if they had expanded a little bit more on her background with Thanos in this universe and given us a reason why she was so quick to change her tune on him. That probably would have made more sense to me. But the way that it was now, this is Gamora. She is an intergalactic assassin. She is the daughter of Thanos. Like, she even comes across like, I'm the daughter of Thanos, and you did this, and he's tasked with bringing balance to the universe. Like, she really sounded like she had drank all the Kool-Aid and then some at the beginning of this episode. So to see her go from that extreme to the other extreme with just a few lines from Tony Stark, with no background on what her true feelings are for Thanos in this universe, again, it just, I don't know. Maybe I'm expecting too much, but it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, well, they, like you said, it's different. They're not following the same structure as the comic book. I mean, it was kind of obvious from season 1 that they kind of wanted to be sort of a whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Each episode you can kind of watch individually, but it is leading up to something.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was my assumption going into this season, that it would lead up to something.
Okay.
At the end, which, if you watch the whole season, probably so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
and in retrospect, it's like we're looking at the episode after having watched the whole season. It clearly doesn't fit. Like, it clearly has nothing to do with season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to evaluate it that way, because you're looking at it in the overall structure of season 2, and in that respect, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that does make sense, because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like in school, if you're going, let's say I'm going to pull math, because math is one of those subjects. So let's say you're in school, you're studying trigonometry, and you're in the middle of this trigonometry stuff, and then all of a sudden you have this one little thing that comes back from algebra 1 that kind of comes in like, oh yeah, by the way, da 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 da. Okay, now you go back to trigonometry. Your brain is going to be like, wait, what? It's like that bait and switch. Wait, okay, so I was learning things this way, and then I had to go back to this way, and now I got to go back to this way. You're going to be confused. And I do feel like that was kind of how this episode presented. Now, if I think about it in that way, the way you just said, Anthony, and I try to pull it separately, I mean, even in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a bad episode. It had its fun moments. Again, Korg is always a joy for me when he was playing with the little
Gerbils.
thing, and it was pooping in his hand.
Mhm.
Tony
No,
Stark
when
getting
he was driving towards the intergalactic Snuffleupagus when it came out, and then he like stopped and like picked the car up, stopped like Fred Flintstone, and picked the car up and turned it around. Like,
yeah.
that part was freaking hilarious to me.
Yeah. So certain things, Tony Stark, I need to know why Tony Stark knows what a man's urinal tastes like, or all of these other references he was talking about with the Sakarian beer. He kept making references to it tasting like piss, or I'm like, Tony, you are not doing anything to help your reputation right now, because I'm wondering how you know what all this is.
What if at one point he had a suit that was recycling his urine to keep him hydrated, so he would know?
This is not Dune.
that is Dune.
I'm just saying. Well, that's wet. I'm just saying.
Repeat that, Laura. You were breaking up.
Leave the still suit alone.
I mean, it's not a bad concept if we have to move towards that type of thing. But no, I mean, it was just funny. But so like I said, there were some good parts to the episode. There were some fun parts. I just think there was, for me, thinking about the intro and where we were supposed to go with this story, I just think it fell short in that way. And then again, like I said, I think there was too much of the banter and the puns with the Grandmaster and Iron Man. And it felt, like I said, it felt forced. Like, okay, we have to be funny. We have to do this. We have to do this. I have to say this. Because, yeah, Tony has a habit of being a smart ass, but he's also very serious, and it just I don't know. But yeah, I did like the nod to Mad Max. There was the guy in the big, they call them chariots, but these things look like monster trucks. And there was the guy who was pulling on the horn, and he had he reminded me of the guitar player in Fury Road because of
Yeah,
the
on the with
helmet.
the big jet engine, kind of.
So yeah, I mean, watching the fight. Oh, it also reminded me a little bit of Tron when they got inside the tunnel with the light, with the blue lights and everything. Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Tron.
Even the finish line, when they crossed the finish line and it shattered like the tail of the bikes.
Right. Now I will tell you what the coolest part of this episode was for me. Tony Stark is on a planet. He doesn't know anything about the materials. He doesn't know anything about whatever. He still builds himself a suit that transforms into a freaking car.
To a fucking Indy car. To an Indy car. And then when he wins, he jumps out of the car and the car turns back into a suit. That shit was fire. I was like,
I need to see that in live action. I know Iron Man is supposedly done in the MCU. I need them to go back and do a flashback or something. I need to see that suit to car to suit come to life.
Has anyone seen Alita Battle Angel?
Yeah, Alita Battle Angel.
Yeah, this kind of
it reminds you of the race that they had.
The race, yeah, that race kind of reminded me of that. I was like, especially with the guy with the big jet engine that ate cars and spit out bullets behind it. I was just like,
oh yeah, the one in the front. That was kind of cool though. I was like, okay, that would be handy. But the way he was just going after everybody, I was like, okay, is this like an actual just a car, or is that I don't know. It was weird because he was purposefully going after people to put them.
He was probably an enforcer.
Yeah, that was crazy. But I'm looking at it in the background, and it just turned into the car. That was the coolest part of this episode.
Okay,
it really
Speaking
was.
of Tony's armor, one of the things that still bugs me when I think about it is when they're at the first race and Tony gets up and tries to summon his armor. I'm like, whoa, hold up. He can't do that yet. He can't. The only way he can only do that when he was trying to do it in Iron Man 3. And that is nowhere near where this takes place. So that kind of messed with me because he can't summon his armor like that yet.
Was Avengers before Iron Man 3?
Way before. Avengers is before Iron Man 2.
So I don't know. Maybe he developed that technology a little bit earlier in this universe, because we have to remember this universe is not a parallel.
No, but that's the same day that he got there, though.
But remember, because remember the Grandmaster said time works differently there in Sakaar, because for Tony, he arrived on Sakaar the same day that he defeated the Chitauri. But according to the Grandmaster, several days had passed. So we don't know what this.
But I'm saying he didn't have time to. I mean, it's like Jarvis didn't even have time to finish developing the suit of armor that, like, he had to rush through and get the suit of armor that shot out of Stark Tower and merged with him while he was falling down the building. He hasn't developed that technology yet.
But we don't know if that's what happened here in this what if universe. He could have already developed that technology.
I think for some reason it seemed like they made it seem like to me that all this with him waking up and like the first day that happened, the first race all happened it seemed like that didn't happen within enough time for him to develop that technology.
She's saying he had it before
the fight with the Chitauri. He could have already developed it in this universe, as opposed to, in the live action, he didn't develop that for years. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying he could have already done that. Could have been the way that he developed that suit. That could have been
Remember,
stage one.
the way What If works is it could have been one of those ripple effects where since he developed it earlier and had it, that could have been the reason why he didn't make it through the portal in time. Like you kind of have to look at different things kind of affected the things that changed.
Mm-hmm.
So he really possibly could have in this universe come up with it earlier than he did in our universe. Because we know in the MCU, I think he was inspired by T'Challa's Black Panther costume working that way. So we don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't seem like it. And then it was sticky. I'm like, I don't even
I
know.
was just about to mention that. Why was his suit sticky? I have so many questions.
I think it's probably from the foam that was released when he was still on fire when he landed. And it might have gotten
I think Grandmaster did some freaky things.
No. I'm trying to get away from that, Anthony. No, it's the damn foam. I don't want to think about anything that the Grandmaster.
Anthony. Anthony and I are here because I was wondering.
I'm trying not to be there.
Didn't you see the smile on the Grandmaster's face?
He was a little too excited about this suit.
Oh, Metal
yeah,
Mojo Man. Hey, look, I'm Metal Mojo Man.
Yeah. And then okay. So the other funny part about it was, so after they go through this whole race and everything, Tony Stark defeats him. I forgot what her name was. His right hand person, the one who has the stick that melts people. I forgot what her name was.
Yeah, his Frau Verbissina.
But she her staff at the end of the
you like that,
race,
don't you, Anthony? You got that right.
That was funny.
Her staff at the end of the race is thrown into the air. It lands on the ground and it rolls towards the Grandmaster and it touches his foot. So of course he starts melting because that's what the staff does. So then we get a Wizard of Oz reference because he starts saying, "Oh, I'm melting." But somehow, first time I watched this, I didn't realize there was a mid-credit scene. So I didn't see the mid-credit scene until today.
Because I saw Wicked and was like, "Oh, good," and turned it off.
Bring me a mop in a bucket.
Did he also say, "I'll be back" or something like that?
Yeah, give me a mop in a bucket.
Give me a mop in a bucket.
That was probably the best moment of the entire episode when he did the whole Wizard of Oz Wicked thing. So,
and Korg was like, "Oh, he smells like bad life choice."
Yeah, that was good too. Yeah, I mean, this, I like the comedic bits that they did in this episode. It's just that I didn't know until tonight that this was supposed to be for the first season of What If, but I can kind of see why they didn't include it. But I'm with you guys; it doesn't really flow at all. And I think the biggest problem that I have with it is that it was an odd choice. It was an odd story. Gamora, the whole thing, and I'm sitting and I'm watching it, going, "Okay, this is really, really not my jam. This is." It couldn't even, I didn't even think about the whole Ben-Hur, thing,
chariot
or the
race,
chariot thing, until you mentioned it. It was just that it just didn't leave an impression on me at all. So yeah, but yeah, that was funny.
I think maybe if they had placed this towards the beginning of the season, it might have flowed better. But I feel like with the episodes that we've seen so far, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. This actually would have made a good
it was just placed in the wrong order.
It would have made a good first episode, just because it kind of reintroduces it, like where we left off. Where we left off, we have the Guardians of the Multiverse,
right?
And it's like, oh, but we told everybody's story, but we didn't tell her story. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way, then we can proceed with everything else that we got to do.
Right. Yeah. I think that's what I'm gonna go with. It's not that the story didn't feel right. I think they put it in the wrong spot. Yeah, and then also, so at the end of the episode, when Gamora takes Tony to Thanos and they have their little exchange, and she jumps up, Tony throws the staff to her, and she puts the staff in Thanos's chest. And he just kind of looks at her, and then the camera pans to her face, and then that's it. is it just me, or did anyone else get the feeling that that staff was really not working on Thanos the way that it should have been working on Thanos?
I mean, Thanos is the Thanos is a Titan, right?
He is from Titan. He is an Eternal.
Eternal, yeah. So I mean, it worked. I guess it works because the Grandmaster technically is a Celestial. So you saw how it worked on him.
Mm-hmm.
So Eternal. It probably did work differently on him. It probably,
Yeah, but it probably still killed him because they can be killed.
Yeah, but
unlike the Grandmaster, who cannot be killed, he's immortal. So
right, Grandmaster and the Ice Cube tray. I'm sorry, it's just
No, because I was just gonna say that you know what we always say: if you don't see a body, that person may not be dead. And I don't know, something about the way Thanos was looking at her like, you really think this is about to do anything to me? So in that sense, this episode still doesn't explain the whole what if Gamora killed Thanos?
I don't know, because they are clearly melting down the Infinity Gauntlet and they are clearly alive, because he would not have allowed them to walk away from an attempt on his life. He'd be dead.
They're definitely not walking away with the Infinity Gauntlet.
No, they're not.
Not at all.
No.
But then again,
I'm just saying we didn't see a body.
But it's like we talk about the Infinity Gauntlet. It's like he didn't even use it. We didn't even see. This is why this seems like it was hastily put together, because it doesn't say it doesn't even bring up anything about the Infinity Crusher, which was said they used to defeat Thanos.
Yeah, and he didn't.
Okay,
so the other thing is he didn't have all the stones at this point.
Right.
No.
So
Hanukkah, the problem is the Watcher clearly says in season 1 that she killed Thanos. Like, I mean, we really can't. I mean, we maybe argue about how she did it, how they did it, or whether or not the melting stick worked. But clearly, the Watcher says she killed him. Yeah.
We also see the Watcher is not necessarily a reliable narrator.
He's been pretty reliable. When has he not been reliable?
I just feel like because you are a being that is supposed to only watch, and you have not actually interfered in a couple of things.
Well, he had to. The multiverse was going to be destroyed. He had to defeat this.
I don't know. It's just, again, like I said, okay, so if they did kill Thanos, then who got all the Infinity Stones? Nobody else was looking for them in that sense, except for Thanos. So you got to explain to us how all of the Infinity Stones made it into the Infinity Gauntlet, because again, the Infinity Gauntlet was a Thanos creation, wasn't it? So that he could control the stone.
No,
not necessarily. Odin may have done it. That's why he went to Nidavellir to have them make it. Because remember, Odin was looking for them too in the past, but stopped.
That's too much. That's too much history to try to bring into this one episode.
Right,
to make it make sense.
But you're trying to add more stuff to it. That's not
just trying to make it make sense.
We just gave you stuff to make it make sense.
It's not going to make sense because
I just gave you something to make it make sense.
Again, this episode was hastily thrown together, and they tried to put it off as an explanation to how Gamora got the Infinity Gauntlet and how she killed Thanos, and it didn't do a good job of that at all.
It really, they really should have either left it in the vault, or because I just looked it up, and they said that COVID kind of messed up the schedule, and they weren't able to get it ready for release. So they moved on to another episode, which was almost already done, when they picked up. So they decided to push it to the next season. But I don't think they considered how it wouldn't fit in with everything else they were trying to do.
Yeah. Like I said, I think if they had put it at the beginning of this season, maybe it wouldn't it wouldn't be bothering me as much.
No, it wouldn't fit anywhere. It doesn't, because if you watch season 1, this is clearly a season 1 episode.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is
Clearly.
true.
So
Yeah. Again, this is why we need to go to like 10 episodes for a season instead of these 6 and 7 episode seasons. But that,
I think it may have fit, it could have fit right before the finale. Because isn't that where she shows up, where they show up is in
Yeah.
the finale?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think the reason I said I think it's before What If Ultron 1 is because I don't think they would have wanted to break up that cliffhanger from that episode to put this episode there and then go on to the Guardians of the Multiverse. It seems like that would have
Yeah.
just been that would have just thrown off their momentum too much.
And also, it was supposed to be one of the 2 comedic episodes. I couldn't remember what the other comedic episode was, but how dark the season was, maybe it
Yes.
was like in the first half of the
Right.
season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one and Thor and the Thor
Yeah,
episode.
Surfer
Okay.
Thor. They probably moved that one up.
So
to
you know
replace
what?
it.
That could be it too, because to have something like this so soon, at like literally after the Happy Hogan episode, like I said, I feel like it was comedic overkill in
Mhm.
some spots. So yeah, that could be it too. Okay.
So it's probably the first half. I really got to go back and look at season 1.
Yeah, I need to do that too. But like I said, it's not that I didn't like the episode. I liked it just fine. It just wasn't my favorite so far of the season. So, if we're having to rank them, really, it probably is right there at the bottom for
Yeah.
the 4 episodes that we've seen so far.
Yeah, it's definitely towards the bottom. It's just there were a lot of cool moments. I mean, the whole Tony and Gamora in a room with a single bed is kind of a throwback to a comic series where Tony and Gamora actually hooked up and Gamora like damn near wrecked him, damn near killed him.
Really?
But yeah, it's a Anthony's probably read it. He already knows this where I'm talking
No,
about.
I'm laughing at you using the word rectum.
Wrecked him, damn near killed him, but 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 yeah, it's like
Rectum.
I'll show
I
y'all
see what you did there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so yeah,
had a reputation along the lines of She-Hulk when it comes to dating sometimes. Not all the time, but close.
I wonder, does it have to do with the green in the women? Like, is that what it is?
Probably.
Okay.
oh, Green's so horny. Okay. So and
You do that.
You're supposed to do that at the end of the episode so I can close out with that, because oh my
Damn.
God, really?
okay, and yeah, I mean maybe that has to do with because Cord called her the mean asparagus woman. I damn near fell out on the floor when he said that shit.
Okay, so here's my other question. I need to know where in relation to the Earth is Sakaar, because they were using a lot of Earth slang. They were using a lot of Earth references. Like, who else come up with roadkill?
They've been watching us because that's how they knew who Tony was. They were like, "Oh, you're the metal mojo man," because he showed them on the screen saving Earth. Like they actually watched him doing that somehow. So it's like
it was a news report.
Earth is basically them watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which is kind of how I see it. It's like something where it's a guilty pleasure because they're like, oh God, you gotta see what they do. Watch this.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I think aliens are watching us now. Anyway, they're like, oh God, what episode is this? Oh,
at the end of Civil War,
the Orange Man's coming back. Oh God,
Civil War. Toward the end of Civil War, well, actually, toward the beginning. Actually, the beginning. Let me back up. Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, and Mr. Fantastic decided that they didn't want the Hulk involved in any other world, whether it was him or if it was Bruce Banner. So they put him in a little NASA shuttle, and they basically sent his behind to Sakaar. And that led to this wonderful series called Planet Hulk. Awesome series. And it's where he basically became almost king, Core and all of them were like his not henchmen, but soldiers. He had a son. He had this epic fight. They came back to Earth. They basically bombed the New York Yankee Stadium. It was awesome. So Sakaar is very, very important, but the way that they used it in the MCU films is sort of baffling because if they wanted to spin off and have a very successful Hulk movie franchise, it would have been Planet Hulk, basically. So whenever I see it like that, I get a little confused. Like, this is an excellent idea. You're always complaining that you don't have a good. You have Hulk. You got Mark Ruffalo, and it's good, but it's not great. Okay, you should have Planet Hulk. I mean, I'm telling you, it's 97 issues. Awesome, awesome series.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering about that because I was like, they're using a lot of Earth references and they're using a lot of the slang. Because, like I said, who else would? I can't think of another planet that would just come up with the term roadkill and use it the way that we use it. It just seems weird.
Well, like I said, they have the NASA shuttle, so it's entirely possible that they scavenged the technology and they basically, used the components because if you remember from the movie, they were using anything for salvage, and they came across maybe a live or working feed, and they went from there. But yeah, no, it's very interesting because the way that they have everyone in this episode and in Thor Ragnarok, the way they portray them, like I said, is just baffling if you read the comic books, So.
Well, sometimes it looks like they had an idea of doing Planet Hulk live action and just,
Right.
abandon it because we see Scar in She-Hulk.
Right.
So it doesn't seem like it's not something they didn't think about because all the characters have appeared.
Yeah, they have.
All the characters from Planet Hulk have appeared. Like his whole crew has appeared.
Yeah.
Well, one of them was from the race, but not necessarily the character. You remember in Dark World? I think it was Dark World. Thor killed some big rock dude.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the guy. That species is one of the people in his crew.
Yeah. Because Hulk goes through this whole Spartacus thing on Planet Hulk, where he literally frees the people. I mean, it's on Planet Hulk is pretty awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like they thought about it and kind of planted the seeds, but I don't think it's ever going to happen though.
No, it would have if they were going to do it right. It'd have to be at least 3 movies, at least.
Yeah, and they've got so much on their plate right now that's taking us into what 2027, 2028 maybe. So yeah,
that's a lot.
I mean, they might as well do it. They can't use Jonathan. They can't use Kang anymore. So
yeah, that's true too.
But apparently they're still going to do Kang, so they're talking about recasting it. So
I don't mind them recasting, but I wouldn't mind them just pivoting to Doctor Doom and just call it a day.
As long as they do it right. As long as they do Doctor Doom right this time. And don't do anything weird or make him look like or do anything fucked up with his origin story.
Then he'd just be an evil Iron Man. Just do it that way.
Basically.
Or do something that they normally would do is in giving him a different appearance. Oh, I don't know, make him steampunk or something stupid like that, because seriously, whatever.
That's exactly what it'd be. It's like every time you walk, you'd be like, shh, shh, shh.
Right, exactly. Some stupid stuff like that. But
an evil Iron Man that uses sorcery like Doctor Strange, that would be amazing.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that for me, I never liked the actor so much as Kang. To me, it just didn't sit right. Maybe either he was really playing Kang really, really well, or I just didn't like the actor. As far as recasting, I mean, the choices that they have come up with have been interesting, but I'm with Anthony. I would prefer you just to get, Dr. Doom. Just move on. I mean, you could easily explain it away and move on to something else because the closer we get to Doctor Doom, closer we get to Fantastic Four, closer we get to the X-Men.
I've not seen an actual confirmation of that. So
yeah, how these things normally come out is when they start doing casting calls for tertiary characters and when they're trying to fill in the background people.
Yeah.
That's when it starts to come out, and there haven't been any like announcements, because sometimes agents will leak that stuff too.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, I had a client who auditioned for a lab tech in the tower,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
got that in the Baxter building. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But yeah, so that'll be speculation for another time. You guys have any final thoughts on this episode? I think we can pretty much wrap it up. I mean, it wasn't like I said, it wasn't a spectacular episode. It was fine. I
Yeah.
liked it. I enjoyed it. It just feels kind of disjointed for where
Yeah.
we are in the season.
Shout out to Korg again. This series giving Korg another Hulk smash moment where he was like, "Wait for my signal." He was like, "Okay, go," and he grabbed him and started doing the Hulk smash thing. And he was like, "I didn't give you the signal." He's like, I'm sure your goatee twitched." And he was like, "No." That
It's
was funny.
twitching now.
he
was
did the
funny.
same thing in the first episode, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Um.
old.
So at least they're being they're being consistent with his character. So
Yeah, that's true. Shout out to Grandmaster's assistant trying to dissuade him from the race, saying, "Really, sir, there's no reason for you to do this. You already have the city. Like, why are you going to bet the city?" And it's like,
she
there
had a
was no
point.
reason. She's right. She was absolutely right. I was like, why are you doing this? Like,
Right.
there's nothing in it for you. It's like he was like, I want the suit. He's like, deal. And I was like, there's nothing. What? There's no reason for you to bet your sovereignty on a race. Like
Literally, you could just have him killed and take the suit.
basically, just get the
That's
suit.
too easy. That's
Well,
just
I
you
know,
see what
but
happened when he tried to do it his way. It didn't quite work out for him.
the advantage he has is that he can't die. He's immortal, so
Yeah.
That's
he
true.
can play the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout
I
out
want-
to the shout out to the alarm actually saying alarm, 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 alarm. That was awesome.
That Grandmaster. So do you think since he's not dead, do you think he's going to pop up next season?
Tell you, just put him in a mold, put him in the freezer, he'll be fine. He just has to firm back up. He'll be all right. He can't die. So what's he gonna do? It's like either do that or paint him on a canvas and have him be like the Doctor Who, what's her name, who said, moisturize me, moisturize me.
Okay. And on that note, that's it for our show. You can find us online at www.fandomhybrid.com. We are on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads. Everything else is Fandom Hybrid. You can chat with us on our Discord channel. You can watch our videos on our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope you join the conversation next time.